great quality wines at very reasonable prices, I go for Premier Estates every time. Take this exquisite Aussie Shiraz, a mere $5.99 a bottle. Luscious, earthy, bursting with fruit and spice. Australia practically jumps out of the glass. In fact, some say you can almost taste the bush.
Hello, guys and gals. It's your old buddy Kris, professional toy maker and jolly old elf. You know, I had an amazing time with you all on Drew's live stream interview on Friday, December 16th. You all had such great questions and made me feel like part of the family. But when it ended, I realized we had a lot of questions that didn't get answered. And one of those questions was about the origins of some of our traditions we have for Christmas. So I wanted to take today and visit one of my historians at the North Pole, little Curtis the elf. He's very knowledgeable. But I asked him the question about the origins of Christmas cards. So he's going to tell you about it today. I hope you enjoy. Stay tuned.
Saying Merry Christmas. No, I don't say Happy Holidays. I don't think that should be offensive to anybody who's not a Christian. In fact, I'm probably more of a Taoist than a Christian myself, but in any case, it's a part of our culture. So I think people, even non-Christians, ought to respect that. Now, of course, the Christmas celebrates the birth of Jesus way back 2,000 odd years ago. It wasn't really fixed on December 25th until 354 AD when the Pope decided that that's when it should be. Now, even though a lot of scholars say that really Jesus was probably born in the spring, we don't really know for sure. Now, for a long time, Christmas was just one of many holidays in the church calendar, and it was not even the only holiday that ended with Mass. We had other holidays like Candlemas and Hallowmas. Hallowmas was obviously All Saints' Day, which follows Halloween. And Candlemas is kind of cool. It was the time they took the Christmas decorations down on February the 2nd, which had something to do with the presentation of Jesus at the temple, officially, so speaking. But I like how it's the same day as Groundhog's Day. Anyway, it was just one of many holidays, and at times it's been a major celebration. At times it hasn't been. And in fact, at the beginning of the 19th century, early 1800s, it really wasn't celebrated very widely in England, and a lot of businesses didn't even close. And so, like, Scrooge wasn't the only one who didn't close his shop on Christmas. And you can cast a lot of the blame for that on a guy named Oliver Cromwell. Now, for those of you who are history challenged, Oliver Cromwell was the Puritan dictator of England in the mid-1600s for about a decade or so, and his son ruled for what after. It was part of this revolution they had against the king. They executed the king because he was a tyrant. And then after Cromwell, who proved to be a bit of a tyrant himself, they restored the monarchy. So one of the things that Cromwell, as a Puritan, did was he really hated the celebration of Christmas. And he, in fact, banned Christmas caroling, for example. Now, this goes back to the Calvinist tradition, which my family actually comes from a Calvinist tradition, too, via French Huguenots. But The Calvinist, John Calvin, once said that he didn't like any holidays because that just confuses the faithful. Really, the only thing you should celebrate is Sunday church service. Kind of a Grinch, I'd say. So, anyways, the 1800s opened. Christmas is not that big of a deal. And what changed was Queen Victoria, who was part German, and she brought a lot of the German love for Christmas to England. And another thing that changed was the Industrial Revolution. And although there was a lot of misery involved in the Industrial Revolution, there was pollution, there was long working hours, dangerous conditions, child labor, things like that. But eventually there was reforms, and it brought a lot of prosperity to the nation, which created a middle class. And that's what allowed people to have the leisure time to celebrate Christmas and buy gifts and so on. Previously, gift giving was a thing for New Year's, but as Christmas became more significant, people started giving gifts on Christmas instead. By the end of the 19th century, Christmas was probably the most major holiday on the British calendar. Now, of course, many of the elements of the holiday, the most religious ones in particular, such as midnight church services, nativity scenes, and Christmas plays, are many centuries old. And some of the customs come from pagan traditions, such as kissing under the mistletoe and burning the Yule log. And they came into Christianity through the Roman Catholic Church. And I think it was a pretty smart thing that the Catholic Church did, was they assimilated these customs of the pagans rather than saying, oh, these are evil, you have to abandon your entire culture. No, they were smart. And they incorporated in and created a Christian equivalent to these ancient pagan festivals. And so one of these things was the Christmas tree, which was big with German pagans. And Queen Victoria brought that to England because she loved the Christmas tree. And when the public saw Victoria and her husband Albert and their children celebrating around the Christmas tree, they said, we need to have a Christmas tree too. And of course that spread to America. Now we have trees everywhere, and my family still likes to have a real tree rather than the fake one. But whatever you celebrate, it is part of the German Christmas tradition. And now, one of the innovations that happened in the Victorian era was the Christmas card. And this was invented by Sir Henry Cole. And he introduced the idea of a Christmas card in 1843, and he commissioned an artist to design a festive scene for his seasonal greeting cards, and he had 1,000 of them printed. Those Christmas cards he didn't use, he sold to the public, and it became a huge hit. Everybody wanted Christmas cards of their own. And as the cost of printing was going down, it became affordable for normal people to buy and send them. Now, we mentioned the Christmas tree. We also mentioned Christmas caroling, which was banned by Oliver Cromwell. Now, the Victorians brought that back, particularly into the early 1800s. There were two writers that made collections of old Christmas songs, thus getting people singing them again. William Sandys and Davies Gilbert, and where he wrote Christmas carols, ancient and modern, and some ancient Christmas carols. Love those titles. And many of the traditional songs, such as the First Noel, which was French, of course, with the name Noel, appeared at around that time. And we Americans, of course, took those traditions and we adapted them. We enhanced them. We made them truly excessive at times. And I have to note that a lot of the popular secular Christmas carols were written by Jewish composers. So we have to say that Christmas is far more than a Christian tradition. Santa Claus parades first appeared in Peoria, Illinois, but it wasn't a real parade. It was actually not on land. It was a parade of boats on the Mississippi River. Now, that got adopted by Macy's Thanksgiving Parade in 1924, which also featured St. Nick on a float. And this helped establish Black Friday is the beginning of the Christmas shopping season, so thank you, Macy's, for that insanity. Now, food is a major ingredient of the Christmas celebration. And one food traditionally associated with the holiday is fruitcake. I know a lot of people hate it. I've always liked it. It became popular back in the 1600s when sugar became widely available. I guess when the Caribbean got colonized. So you woke people can talk about the evils of colonization, I suppose. But anyway, that helped popularize fruitcake and all the other wonderful sugar treats that made us overweight as we are now. And the Victorians enhanced it by adding alcohol to the fruitcake, which helped make it more popular. Unfortunately, you don't see that in commercial fruitcakes now, which maybe that's why it declined. Speaking of alcohol, Christmas, at least in the pre-Cromwell times, was a 12-day drunken celebration, the well-known 12 Days of Christmas. Now that song was adapted from a Franco-English folk tune. I guess by Franco-English they probably mean the Normans, the William the Conqueror's people. And this was first published in 1780, although I'm sure it was a lot older than that. And the list of gifts was changing over time, and it reached its current form with the Partridge in the Pear Tree in 1909. And because Christmas was a 12-day celebration, it wasn't one big dinner. It was like a series of dinners. And I heard, this was kind of a cool thing I heard a few years ago on NPR, and they directed me to this website which talked about an English food historian called Ivan Day, and he researches ancient cookbooks and the old cooking gadgets and utensils, and he replicates some of these. And one of the things he found out that was turkey was not a big deal that it is today. It was any kind of meat, particularly roast beef, because most English people couldn't afford roast beef year-round, so they would have it for special occasions like Christmas. There were also, most of the main dishes on these 12 days were all meat-derived, and it was things like swan and partridge and duck, rabbit, and even turtle. They would pass the Christmas turtle. Now, even the Scottish got in the act, and they had a Christmas version of haggis that included raisins. Now, I'll eat just about anything, but that's one thing that I kind of draw the line at. Of course, turkey had been around for Christmas in England for a while, since the 1600s, and originally it was called Indian chicken. But the person who really popularized turkey as the centerpiece of Christmas dinner was Charles Dickens, and his famous story, A Christmas Carol. It's something like A Christmas Carol in Prose. It's got a really long title, which is very cool. Now, A Christmas Carol was published by Dickens in 1843, and it's still relevant. It's about redemption. It's about greed. It's about the true meaning of Christmas. Generosity, love, and that stuff. And so it still resonates with us nowadays. But the reason he wrote it was because he needed the money. And he had a big family, at least by our standards, 4 kids and another on the way. And then I guess he had other family members living with him. So he really needed to get something that was a commercial hit. And although Christmas Carol was a hit, it didn't necessarily make him all the money because people were plagiarizing it. How horrible! Plagiarizing A Christmas Carol. And poor Dickens didn't. He had to sue somebody to get his money. And he had written 3 Christmas stories prior to this novella, The Christmas, which it's a short, it's not really a full novel. So, and supposedly the story was inspired by a trip to the Ragged School, which was an establishment that helped protect London street children, and I guess that made him think about Tiny Tim. Now, because of the great significance of Dickens's work in our culture, there was a movie made in 2017 called The Man Who Invented Christmas, and this is based on the 2008 book of the same name by Les Standiford. It stars Dan Stevens, Christopher Plummer, and Jonathan Pryce. But I guess it was critically acclaimed. And it talks about how the real life story of how he wrote the novella, and incorporating a little bit of his fantasies of how the characters, like the Christmas ghosts, will visit him in his mind, and helped him come up with his ideas, with all these wonderful ideas. And it's interesting. One thing I noted is that the director of the film was Bharat Noluri, which sounds like a very East Indian name. And so, again, I say, Christmas is not just for white Christian Europeans. It's for everybody. So, again, I say Merry Christmas.